Welcome to a Purple Chair podcast by Youth for Youth on how we end FGM and gender-based violence. We are your hosts, Cynthia Karanja
and Leah Wegema.
And today we will be looking at our journey as activists, how and why we became activists, impacts and challenges, and of course, highlights of activism. We will also include some personal stories with activism. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, guys. So I think it's interesting for us to start with, what is an activist? What does it mean to be an activist?
Do we want to go dictionary kind of definition of activists, or what you and me do? Or we can do both.
We can do both.
Yeah. So according to what I read, it's an activist is someone that takes the knowledge they have and uses it to influence those around them. For instance, what we do at NFGMEU, we are activists. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, more of fighting for the plight of people, advocacy. You find a cause and you want to champion for it. I think that's what my definition of what an activist would be, honestly.
That is so true.
Yeah.
So, Leah, when did you discover you were an activist?
Gosh. I think it wasn't a discovery. I think someone pointed it out. They're like, oh, what you do is activism. And I was like, well, this is how I was brought up. You would see the neighborhood come together, help someone out, help a family out in need, or just help people in the community that needed assistance for some reason or another, And it became innate, almost natural to go out of my way. If I found that people who didn't have a voice, I go out of my way to try and help, whichever way I could. So growing up, I was always fighting for something, fighting for someone, fighting against something. I also was a bit rebellious, I'd say. I think I used to question authority a lot, but that's besides the point. Then when I grew up, someone pointed out, they were like, you're an activist. That's what you're doing. You're advocating for something. And ding, 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 that was a moment.
Yeah, that is so true. I don't think I also have a specific date. I'll be the 17th of March, I became an activist. No, it was more of what I did generally. When I was in primary school, high school, somehow I'd always be the loudest talking about, oh, we need this. This needs to change. In uni as well. But I think it was when I was in university is when someone pointed out and was like, oh my God, you're an activist. Well, personally, I was fighting for my rights and other international students' rights, but then I didn't realize what I was doing was necessarily activism. But I think that's the first time someone called me an activist, and I was like, I am an activist.
Yeah. Yeah, look, if the name sticks.
Yeah. It's kind of just putting a label on something you've been doing all your life. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's so cool. And I feel like everybody has the same kind of journey when they say they're activists.
It's almost similar when you speak to people. It's almost very similar how they start. It's always something was happening around them. They saw something, and it's almost like a personal calling where you find yourself wanting to do something, needing to do something, rather than someone forcing you to do it. I think that's what helps in the long run.
Yeah. Did you know there's different types of activists out there?
What do you mean?
There is 5 different types of activists, I think I read sometime. And well, I would say we are human rights activists.
Oh, you bet we are. Okay. I mean, it's what we're fighting for. But I didn't know there was other categories.
Yeah, there's different types apparently. So there's human rights activists, environmental activists, animal rights activists. Yeah, and the list goes on. But we mainly at NFGMEU are human rights activists. We fight for the rights of young women across the world. So that's so cool.
You learned something.
Yeah, we're like the Avengers. What inspired you to become an activist?
I think once it was pointed out that what I was doing was advocating or being an activist about something, I realized, I think I could say that was the moment that inspired me when someone looked at me and said, this is what you're doing. There was a name to it, because what I knew was, charity starts at home. That's what I was taught. So all this time I thought it was just being a society, being a decent human. And I thought, okay, now I have this label. Let me run with it. I think that's the fact that someone was able to look at me and identify what I was doing when I myself didn't have a name for it or couldn't, thought it was something else. I think that was a big inspiration. And this is not someone who actually knew me that well. And what I felt like it did was there was that domino effect of what you're doing is activism. Are you part of an organization? Is it something organized that you're doing? And I realized that the people around me had such a big need for it or wanted to join and make it more organized. I think that's really what inspired me then to become, I think, more aggressive in my approach or more organized in my approach as an activist. And then you end up finding like-minded people.
Yeah, that is so true. I feel like everyone, including our listeners, everyone is an activist in one way or another. If you stand up for something you believe in and you fight for someone, you are being an activist. That is activism. So yeah, that is so cool.
What about you? What inspired you?
Well, I would say was when I was in uni, I think.
Comes back to uni.
Yeah. That was like when I found myself. It's like I found my calling, I had issues with being an international student. And I found so many gaps, like no one was there to help me. So then I didn't want other people to go through the same thing. So I rallied or gathered other international students like myself and we're discussing. And I'm like, this is a challenge I have. And someone else mentions theirs. And we went to the international office and we're like, these are the problems we have. We need help. And I think that's where like my journey as an activist began.
Yeah.
Because they realized we were actually going through something. And rather than suffering in silence, I stood up with my friends and we fought for our rights. So I think that was like my big activism movement.
That's what really inspired you.
Yeah,
you were the loudest.
I've always been the loudest.
It comes with the job. It does sometimes.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So that being said, as much as it sounds being fun, like being an activist, I know there's always challenges we face.
Oh yeah. Oh
it's
gosh.
Not easy.
No, I wouldn't want to sell a dream to someone. Being an activist, again, is a calling, but even in itself, you find it sometimes you wake up and, you say, today I'm going to do this, or today I'm going to try and achieve A, B, C, and D with what I'm fighting for or fighting against. And you always find red tape, as in any other, aspect of your life. You always find a hindrance, or it could be even, for example, you're going into a community and you want to talk about FGM or just trying to understand. I feel like the biggest thing for me was the learning curve of when you're going to meet a community who's practicing or who've survived FGM. Some people are for it. You have to remember when you're, advocating against or for something, there are people who support it. And you're going to find people who are not like-minded. And it's at that point where you find you're going to have to learn to respect, bring these people to the table, talk to them as well. I can imagine you and your work with men, in trying to involve men in trying to fight against FGM. That isn't easy in itself. I mean, you could probably tell me more about it because...
No, it's not easy.
No.
And especially, I feel like in most practicing communities, you have men or places where I, as a female, especially a young female, can't go and stand in front of men and speak. So that proves to be very challenging. That is like one of my biggest challenges, I would say, is not being able to stand and, speak to men freely because I'm not allowed the platform as much as I want to. But then, along the way, you find ways in which you can just cope or adapt. So then working with other men who are activists, and through them, letting them be the voice at the moment. But that being said, there's also challenges like today in the morning, let's start off there. We're coming to shoot our episode and all of a sudden, I lost my phone. Like that is a challenge.
That is a challenge itself.
Everything is in there. That's my workspace as well. It can also be like when you've prepared and let's say the weather is horrible and you can't get to where you're going to. That is also a challenge.
Ireland.
I know, it's always raining. It can be like when we have a session and you can't come because of other things you have to
Life,
do, Yeah.
yeah.
So those are challenges that we as activists face along the way. And I know people can also relate with that.
Honestly, I just wanted to piggyback off one of the things you said. It's not having that platform. And
Yeah.
so you find yourself fighting a lot more than you expected you'd need to, because you need to actually create those platforms for yourself. So trying to navigate creating a space for yourself in community is a challenge in itself, because no one really tells you,
No.
you thought that there are going to be people there to listen to you, and you have to now fight.
Yeah. And you have like this whole presentation, everything planned out, laid out. You have the strategy
Go with
and
the plan.
everything. But then you get there and they're like, Like one time I was told, little girl, shut up.
Oh.
I was like, oh Lord.
How? It's already aggressive from the beginning.
Like I was so ready to go at it, but then, because I wasn't allowed to speak.
However, there are highlights.
Yeah. Oh, amazing one. And that's what keeps us going, I would say.
It really is. It's a food for the soul. Like I was saying before, it was that domino effect, the chain effect that you find where I think you put it best when you were dealing with, young activists or people who are new to the scene of, being an advocate. And they come up and they say, I want to join.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think you have a really good example of this.
Oh, yeah, that is true. It's when you stand up and you discuss about FGM and how it affects women within the community. And I mainly work with young people, and you find they're curious and interested in learning more. And then all of a sudden after the session, they have like so many questions and they're interested and intrigued by it, And then after you leave, maybe the next time you meet them, they tell you, oh, I went home and I told my family, or I told my neighbor or my friend, So it's kind of like them just passing on what we've done. That is what I feel like keeps me going, knowing that one person went and shared with another and another, as you say, the domino effect or the chain effect. It just keeps going. And just by that, I know I've made a difference. It might not be a huge difference where I have like thousands of people, but just because I have like 2 or 3 people, that is like a big win for me.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going.
Honestly, I think even just being able to provoke thought, like I said, when you're an activist, whatever it might be, like you said, animal, environmental, you're going to find people who don't think like you. But the mere fact that you're able to provoke thought, to challenge someone to think, because what we can say is there are people who have deeply rooted beliefs and opinions about things, and being able to sit down, and you don't really have to, I think like people think activism is actively changing minds or changing practices. But the fact that you plant a seed of, okay, there might be something different, or there might be a different way of approaching something, is, I think, one of the biggest highlights. And you can actually see it when you're talking to people.
Yeah.
When they now have to, rethink, relearn, unlearn, and then relearn everything that they had thought about. It's one of the biggest highlights. And not only that, it's even for people who are not aware of the things that you're talking about or advocating for, when they come back and they're like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know it was prevalent, or I had never been introduced to such a topic. And they come back and they're like, now I know. I think that's one of my biggest highlights. Again, it's the 1-2 people that you get.
Yeah, that is so true.
Having each other has been one of the highlights, because you also make friends as you move along. Not just activists, you also make friends with, people that you're fighting for, people that you're trying to give voice back to or agency. You find yourself making long-lasting connections, friendships, support systems. Because there are times I'll probably call you in the middle of the night saying, I need to do this. Just either sing to me one of your songs. You're a very good singer. Make up things.
Thank you.
Or I'll go back and, there's even the materials that we have. Yeah. Sometimes you have brain drain.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That is another challenge.
It is. But, we're also prepared for things like that. So people who have been activists for a long time, or organizations, they have materials, pamphlets, online, infographics, for example, that you're able to go back to and be like, okay, I can channel a bit of whatever I need.
Yeah, and we have NFGMEU. We have each other, all the youth ambassadors from all over. It's great working with you guys. Like, I just want to put it out there. You know, I can rely on you. I can rely on the other girls. I can rely on the team. It's amazing that we know even if we fall, we have someone else to pick us up and someone who can like share the ideas. Something which I also like and I feel like it's amazing is that we're not selfish with our ideas. We always share everything
Oh, yeah.
together. That can also be a challenge as an activist where I feel that along the way people become competitive and then they're like, oh, this is my thing and I'm not
Intellectual
gonna share.
property.
Yeah, I'm not gonna share with you. I feel like that makes you or whatever you're doing lose touch, because at the end of the day it's not about us, but it's about making a difference and bringing change. So I feel that it's positive that we share ideas. You know, you come with your idea, someone else comes with the idea, and together we merge these ideas and we do amazing work and have great impact, you know. So yeah, that is amazing. So that's so cool.
I feel like we've given so much of challenges and highlights, you know, that can resonate with listeners, because again, like I said, this is it's cross-cutting, where you find your journey as an activist, even though it looks very different because you are an individual. There are things that among people, between people, you'll find could be very similar, and they could resonate with this.
And I feel like it's the same for all of us, whether you've been an activist for like 50 years, you've been a new activist, you've only been an activist for a week. We go through the same journey, you know.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, but it's beautiful to know that you're not alone and other people go through the same things, challenges, wins, you know, the highs and lows. Activism is like a journey, you know, like it'll be speed bumps, highways,
Such a
where everything is
storyteller.
smooth.
You know what,
Yeah.
Cynthia, okay, as a storyteller though, you do have very personal stories as an activist.
Well, oh my God, I have so many. Probably one I would say is when I was doing my activism. Well, most of the times what I do is I try and look for creative ways to share information. And one of my favorite signature one is popcorn and movie. Who doesn't like watching movies? One time it was after the movie and everyone was so interested in the movie and they had so many questions, hands were up. But then I realized when they were watching the movie, there was one particular gentleman seated somewhere within the crowd, and the face he had and how he was looking at me and watching the movie, I could sense like, facility is gonna come out of that one, right? And he was among the first people to raise their hands. So then I was like, oh God, someone, I need help. But then when he raised his hand, the first thing he asked me was, what about male circumcision? But the beauty of the story is one of the gentlemen who's always involved in my meetings, or he attends most of my meetings, which he's also mentioned in my episode in the podcast. I called him Muscle Man. He stood up and, you know, he came forward before I could say anything. He was like, how dare you compare male circumcision with FGM?
Again, the domino effect.
Yeah, and he started speaking about it. That was like one of my biggest highlights, I feel like, in my journey as an activist, when he did that. So that was so cool. And that's a story I like sharing because it kind of gives me hope. It lets me know that what I'm doing is amazing and it's making a difference. And yeah, it's like a cool moment. I was scared at the moment, but then he jumped out, and it was also a man responding to a man. That was like
mind-blowing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Or like when I was told shut up, I couldn't speak. Guess who spoke for me? My father. Mr. Karanja himself spoke.
What?
Yeah, because he's a man respected in society. So
that
he stepped in and spoke for me. Imagine if I couldn't speak and then I left. But no, he stepped in and spoke for me, you know?
Yeah.
And that was amazing.
And you probably hadn't even shared your source material with him. He was coming in.
I share everything with my family.
Oh.
All of them.
They all know. They're part of this advocacy, eh?
By force. But yeah, that is cool.
I think similarly for me, I started this, started from home, watching my mother do her work. She's been an advocate probably for as long as I've known her, and that's about 27 years of my life. It was beautiful that I went back to Kenya, I think 2 years ago, and walking the streets, someone runs up to me, knows my name. I can't put a face to this person. I can't put a name to this face. They're like, oh, don't you remember me? And because they can see on my face, I can't hide. I don't have a poker face. and they were like, I'm so and so. And it dawned on me. She was one of the girls we had rescued from an early marriage community, girls forced into early marriage. We had rescued her when she was 5.
Mm.
She's now a teenager, thriving. She said she's doing computer science and she's making friends. She's part of the community. She has a job. You know, in your life, you meet so many people, so it's very easy to forget. But she came back and she gave me a big hug. Someone I had probably not recalled, you know, previously. And she was like, you made a big impact. And I think having someone that you've impacted as well come back to tell you, I'm thriving. I'm
Yeah.
happy. Regardless of what's happened,
Mm.
I'm thriving and I'm happy. Oh, I could cry.
Oh, that is amazing. That's a good one.
So you've worked a lot with youth and youth activists. Has there been anything, you know, about the journey as a youth activist? Yourself, you're young. So has there been anything in terms of, you know, journey as a youth activist that you'd like to share? Because I feel like we also do have some young listeners who might be already activists or wanting to be an activist that you could actually share or resonate with the listeners.
Well, yeah. Personally, I am a youth activist. You're as old as you feel, and I feel 16, forever 16. Yeah, as a youth activist, there are so many challenges that I've faced, and I think other youth activists can relate. And one is not being given the space or being allowed the opportunity to speak because I am young. There's activists who've gone ahead of me. They've probably been activists for like 20 years, 30 years. So then they will get more opportunities than myself because I'm young, I'm new. I've not been in the game for too long like they have been. So that is one of the biggest challenge I feel that I face as a youth, and I know other youths face as well. But that being said, I feel that NFGMEU gives me and other youths the platform to, you know, speak and be heard. The fact that I was a youth and I was allowed to join the board is just, you know, like they gave me the opportunity and the space to be a part of the board as well, being a youth, because you don't find young people in such spaces. But I feel that they acknowledge that we have a voice and our voice matters as well. So it is a big challenge, but at the same time, sometimes we get opportunities. So what I would say is, as a youth, it's important to, once you see an opportunity, grab it. Don't just dive in there and grab it.
Grab it.
Yeah, that's like the spirit we as youths have. And
because it's very interesting if you look at the general, you know, youth, we have a hunger, we have an energy. You know, you want to kick off and you say, I want to fight for this cause, or, you know, there's someone that I want to fight for or fight against. There's this energy and aggression that we have that sometimes gets overlooked.
yeah,
You know, and it can be deflating, you know, and it can kill a lot of, I don't want to say kill, but it can hinder a lot of journeys as a young activist or a youth activist. And I feel like you're right. There are those spaces that are being offered. And I think it's also a good point for more organizations or more organized activities to include the minds, you know, of young people, young activists, and even just people in the community who are young, who've been affected by the things that they're, you know, advocating against or for, because it's not just for those people who've had experience as an activist. It's also for those people who are trying to get into the space.
Yeah.
You know, training young minds as well.
Yeah. That's important.
It is. It's very important as well.
And one other thing when you're talking about like spaces and youths not being given opportunities is, I recently attended a conference and I sat down and I was actually sad towards the end, because all these were like great activists, big names, known people, and then there was people like myself and others, startup activists, people who want to get into activism, who were all just in one big group. But then it felt, and I like said to myself, I don't want to end up that way. Like I want to be the same like activist as I am 20 years from now. The point that I'm trying to make is, I noticed, or I felt that some activists that probably have been in the game for too long and they've built a name and reputation along the way, it's kind of like they've lost sight of why they began the journey as an activist, and now it's more about themselves. Like, oh, now I'm so and so, and it's not about the cause or the reason as to why you got into activism, which I feel like is also a very big challenge when we talk about activism. And I feel that it's important as activists to always stay in tune with our goal and our mission as activists, rather than get carried away with the fame and now you're a big name. So then, like, the cause.
Being rooted as well, I understand a lot of what you're saying, because what you find is, I think when you're being trained to be an activist. Most times you're told, lead with authority. You need to speak with authority, because you're trying to speak to a wide majority of people. You need to have some form of authority, but then people take it a step too far where they are the authority.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like they can actually share that space with people, especially, again, someone who's young.
Yeah.
And you've probably haven't been in the game you haven't even been alive for 50 years, know. But it goes to show then how important it is for group or organized activities like NDFGM, like you're saying, who provides that opportunity, that space for young people. And it has never felt, to me, I don't know about you, but it's never felt like we're just giving you the space again. Because there's they could be for sure where we have someone who's young on the board. However, it feels like we want to actively hear from you. We want you to take charge of your activities and organizations. And, a big part of the podcast as well is having people come to speak and having those opinions from your perspective as well.
Yeah, that is so true. And also, I feel like as activists, it's important for us to remember that we don't have to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, somehow, you feel like you have to be perfect, or you're scared that you're going to make mistakes, and that kind of like puts pressure on you as an activist. It makes it so difficult sometimes to work. And activism is not, it feels like a full-time job. And most of us as activists, we have
full-time jobs.
They're like full-time jobs. So it's like you have 2 full-time jobs that require a lot of energy and effort put in both, and sometimes, many a times, I have felt like quitting. Like one time, because I have a full-time job and I also have this, I'm an activist, I felt like I couldn't take the pressure anymore. And for 3 days I sat down, and I think I even kind of felt slightly depressed, and I typed an email. I was gonna send it and say, I quit. I am done being an activist.
Yeah.
And I sat my family down and I told them, guys, I feel like I've reached the end. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be an activist anymore. I have enough on my plate. And they kind of, my sisters and my mom understood. Were like, oh, okay, if that's how you feel, well, then we support whatever you decide. It's sad, but we support what you've decided. But my father turned around and looked at me and he said, no, you can't quit now. I know it's not easy, but you have to keep going. I was like, I'm going to send an email. I'm just telling you guys, I'm going to quit. He said, no, don't quit. Don't send that email. And as much as I felt like I'd reached the end and I was going to send it, I didn't send the email. And I'm so happy I didn't, because look at me, I'm here now. I wouldn't have been here,
Goes to show some of the skills or, life skills that you actually need as an activist is being able to adapt, being able to be resilient for some things. But again, on the other side, there are 2 sides to a coin. It's understanding yourself and knowing, okay, what is my end? Like, what is the point of no return? What is my body telling me? Because sometimes you need rest.
That is true.
And it's understanding that I can take a break. If you need to take a break, take a break.
Yeah.
If you need to take a hiatus, do it. There's still a lot of people who are also in the game. And again, it comes back to being a perfectionist,
Yeah.
Especially for people who've been advocating for a very, very long time. You need rest sometimes here and then. And I feel like having a good life work balance, because being an activist is also a job. Like you said, it's a full-time
not
job.
easy.
And it's not only your 9 to 5 that you have life in general.
Yeah.
You have family, you have friends. There are other spaces that you're occupying in society. You're an adult. So I understand what that means, being perfectionist. I think as well, just not only being a perfectionist, but bridging into the point of how people perceive you. I don't know. This is something else for me, where I want to address the topic. In this case, FGM. I want to address a topic, and the first thing that people see is I'm a woman of color. And not just a woman of color. I'm a woman of color from Kenya, from Africa, and I've come prepared. I've come planned. This is something I'm living, I'm breathing activism. And I know myself. I'm very confident. But then you come and you find not just people who are addressing, but the people you're meant to be in collaboration with. And it's a challenge in itself, because we're living in the diaspora, and so most of the audiences that we're bringing this to are people who also feel far removed from some of the things that you're advocating against, some of the, the topics, like FGM. And so you want to, because a big part of my job, I haven't probably said this, big part of my job has been trying to also bring this to academicians. So people in academics, people who do literature and in schools and universities. Have you ever tried to speak to someone who knows a lot?
Yes.
It's very difficult, and then put that a layer of, I look like this, I don't look like you, big challenge. However, like we were saying before, occupy this space and occupy it fully and confidently. You might feel a little bit of fear. You might feel a little bit of self-consciousness, and you're wanting in self-confidence. I don't know, people say fake it till you make it.
That is so true. Like, that has always been a part of me as well. Like, sometimes I feel like I can't speak in this space. Sometimes I'm called in to speak to healthcare professionals, specifically doctors and nurses. Now, these are people in the field, and I'm coming in to teach them about what we talk about. And some of them will be like, oh, when I was in uni, we covered that, like, second year. So what is she saying? Or some will be like, well, it's not a problem here. It's more of a problem where you are from, And that kind of sometimes sets me off, or it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not wanted in this space. But then, as you said, fake it till you make it. I put my foot down and I keep going. And at the end of it, it's like, wow, I did it. Like, it may feel or seem like a challenge, but I did it.
Yeah. And when we're saying fake it till we make it, we're not saying we're being fake.
No.
We actually know what we're doing. We're like, again, we're very, very passionate about this.
It's just when your confidence or self-esteem is low.
Yeah. You tap into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, there's been times when we're doing work, especially when you're doing work with men or young activists, and you've told me, Leah, I'm being tested. I am actually being tested. I'm like, keep your cool, keep your calm, you're professional, and go ahead. Show them that even young people have composure. Yeah. And they have, especially like you said, when you're doing competency training for doctors and nurses as well. This is a medical field. You don't have a degree in medicine.
None at all.
No, but we understand how parts of activism touches into other parts. So for example, FGM, it does affect health.
Yes.
They're very interrelated. Mm-hmm. Topics are very interrelated. So you do need to address people who may not be in the immediate field that you're in. So I kind of get that. And also it just brings a part of, like you said, being scared to mention something. Cancel culture.
Oh, everyone is getting cancelled now.
Cancel culture.
Say something small, you're out.
I'm sometimes, like I said, I'm one of those people who's very meticulous about planning down to, I dot my T's and cross my I's. No, what is it? Cross my I's, dot my...
Dot my I's, cross my T's.
There we go. And I come to a space and you find yourself fumbling a little bit, or you're not too sure, do I have the right statistics? Am I saying the right thing? Or someone questions you. And then you find yourself, you have to do retrospective. Is what I'm saying right? And you're afraid of saying some things. it's a big challenge. However, I love challenges. And so sometimes my challenge is also a highlight where then I find myself coming out at the end and I say something and I'm like, ooh, that's one for the books.
Deep.
That's one for the books, you know, and it's a highlight because then I prove not only to them, but I prove to myself that what I'm doing, I'm in the right space.
Yeah.
I'm doing the right thing. And when you find yourself, I won't lie, there have also been some times where I might have had wrong information or outdated information. It's about accepting to learn on the job.
Yeah.
Accepting to learn on the job. And I feel like if there's someone out there who's also afraid of being challenged or while you're on the job, while you're speaking to large crowds of people or you know, just in the means of your activism, is learning when someone tells you you might be wrong, is to take a step back and to reanalyze, what do I already know? What am I saying? And taking responsibility of it to educate yourself.
I know you pointed out and say that you work with academic sector. Are there any challenges or like highlights you want to touch on in relations to that?
Oh gosh, I think I have a whole book about this. I remember once, because I was doing my master's, and I was doing my master's in the diaspora, so it's not even back home, you know. And I had been invited for Women's Day. It was about 2 years ago. During that, you know, I was invited to come, you know, speak, share. It wasn't just anything, you know, a specific topic. We were actually coming to speak about the fields that, you know, you're either an advocate for or you're studying. So I ended up showing up. You know, I also still, like, again, I know my material, you know, and I show up and people are speaking, you're given time to speak and people ask questions. And I have always known it's a very sensitive topic to talk about, FGM. So sometimes I don't start with a bang. Oh, this is FGM. No. You bridge it in. You know how to introduce the topic. And I was smart about it. I felt like I was being smart about it. And I remember from the corner of my eye seeing one of the moderators stand up. And she was like, you cannot talk about something that is a taboo. Point blank. A moderator, someone who has probably, this is her alma mater. She's high up ranking in the university, in the eye of the university, tells me that is a taboo. You cannot talk about FGM. And I was like, what do I do at this point? This is what I want to talk about. And I turned around and I asked her, are we not women? Yes. Is this not affecting young girls and women? Yes. Is it a prevalent issue? Yes. So I'm going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Respectfully. Because I brought it from the point of, why are we here today? Yes, it's a sensitive topic, and in some communities, it is still considered a taboo. However, I feel like if there's one place that people should be able to bring sensitive topics to the table is when you're academics.
Yeah.
You're learned people. So you understand the importance of talking about some things. We can't be saying we're going to talk about how, forest fires are killing animals and we're inhabiting and cutting down trees that is going to end our lives in a couple of years. That's a sensitive topic to me. Yeah. I don't want to know I'm going to die in the next future. However, in the same breath, we can't say this topic should be talked about, this one can't. Yes, I can understand saying how you approach a topic should be taken care. However, on the other hand, you can't say this topic is more, we need to talk about this one we can't. You understand? Yeah. Especially because, again, I want to highlight that in the invitation, they hadn't said, this is what we're going to be talking about. It's Women's Day. We want to talk about issues affecting women. For women, by women. I think, again, goes back to saying, know your space, be prepared, speak with authority, but be respectful.
Yeah, and also, like, as an activist, sometimes you have to be flexible.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not, you have to quickly adapt to change or change your strategy. There are many times where I've made a PowerPoint presentation and then I get there and I'm like, So then I have to like go back to the drawing board and I write on a piece of paper and it's something totally different.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like as an activist, there are times where such things happen, but it's more of being able to adapt and quickly re-strategizing or knowing your content well.
It is. And again, because you do find whatever space you are, it's not just a challenge that you'll find of people, like in our case, when talking about FGM, we do address communities that are affected or, practicing FGM. You do, when you're introducing to people who probably are not part of these communities, it's again, being respectful. I want to highlight that again, just being respectful. But I think it's being assertive. That's the word. Being assertive, because you're still being respectful, but you're standing ground, and again, that was one of my highlights.
But before we end, I just want us to end with one little message for everyone. And mine would be, out of all we've said, what I would want every activist who's listening to us to remember is that it's a journey. Activism is a journey. And sometimes, as I said, it's like a road. It's like traveling, going through your safari. The road will have speed bumps. It will be rough. At times, there'll be sharp corners and bends. But sometimes it will be a super highway where you just cruise through. It's okay. Just don't give up. Keep going. Just don't lose hope. That's what I want to say.
It's okay not to be okay. And I feel like that's one of the things that because we have so much strength as activists. We have powerful voices. We're challenging and we're fighting deeply rooted things every single day. That you find yourself realizing that sometimes you can't always be a source or a foundation for strength, a pillar of strength for everyone. You also have to look at yourself and be like, am I taking care of myself? And that's one thing I really want to tell advocates out there, or anyone who's looking into, being an activist, is making sure that you're okay first, making sure that you're sleeping, making sure that you're drinking your water, making sure that you're keeping yourself happy as well, because there are things you are going to inevitably see in your journey as an activist that takes a toll on you. So find avenues where you are little pockets of happiness. May it be people, may it be a hobby. Find something as well, and it's okay to be able to relax once in a while. Thank you for listening to the Purple Chair podcast with your hosts Leah Wagema
and Cynthia Karanja.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to catch our next episodes.